You are now tuning in to the Val and Val Show, where conversation is art. Art, art, art. Conversation is art. Conversation is art. You should chime in. Ain't no telling what to spark on the Val and Val Show. Ain't no telling the Val and Val Show. You know, ain't no telling where we go on the Val and Val Show. Ain't no ceiling, cause the art of conversation is the flow. It's that creativity available when we speak, available in our homes, available in the streets. We just trying to get it sparking and take it a little deeper. Keep it casual while fireside chatting with our people. Yeah, we take it a little deeper. It get hot when we fireside chatting with our people. Cause conversation is art. Conversation is art. You should chime in. Ain't no telling what'll spark on the Val. The Val and Val Show. The Val and Val Show.
Hello. Welcome, everyone. As you can see, there's not another Val with me. Valton has abandoned me. So I'm going to need y'all to go out and search for him, okay? Now, on the serious tip, Valton is actually getting prepared for his film camp, the Dundra Heights Film Camp. And with that being said, you all, we need you all to support him in this initiative. Last year he did it for the first time. It was really, really great. So we need you all to support. The deadline to register for kids that want to attend is March 17th. So what is that? This is the 15th. So we got 2 more days. Also, you can also help sponsor a child that's going to be attending. You can see the donation at the bottom of this flyer, Cash App, $ Valton Johnson, to help sponsor a child. As you can see, all the fun things they did last year. This you all was just with him planning it, and a lot of now the time these kids got to learn how to use digital cameras to even write little plays. They even did production at the end. And as you know, Valton is really, really passionate about helping our kids, giving them a skill to learn, as well as keeping them out of these streets and hopefully safe so they can grow up and have productive lives and don't have to be getting caught up in all kind of criminal activity because they want things. They want to make money. So just like those that are doing these unscrupulous things that are recruiting them, we that are God is blessed to have good jobs and do well, we must invest in these children. Don't complain about them hanging out if you're not willing to invest in them. So make sure, if you can, make a donation to Cash App, $ Valton Johnson. Please do that. He will greatly appreciate it, and I will too. Because as I often say, it's going to take us to save us. And that's just it. The cavalry ain't coming. We are it. So y'all remember that. Now, let me get off my soapbox and get to why we're here. Now, you all, tonight, I'm just going to tell you up front, this is going to be a kind of heavy discussion. So much so that when I started reading this book, I kind of had to put it down and just kind of take a deep breath. And then I reached out, was like, girl, we're gonna need part 2 because we're gonna be tipping the ice tonight. So who we have tonight, you all, is a phenomenal person who I known a few years. She's my sorority sister, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, and also the sister of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity, the only true sister and brother sorority and fraternity there is. However, we'll let you all keep y'all adopted ones because we love y'all too, and we understand everybody need family. We understand. But anyway, tonight I have the pleasure, you all, of having Miss Dorcas Pittman, who is the CEO and founder of Dorcas Pittman International. Now, this is how she describes herself. She says, I'm the Jesus groupie, wife, mother, certified trauma coach, speaker, author, mental health advocate. And she's going to share with us tonight her journey from trauma to triumph after years of enduring suffering and overcoming both childhood and adult trauma. So, Sarah, come on in the room. Come on in the room.
Hey, thanks for having me tonight. I'm so
For
excited.
sure. For
I'm so
sure. How
excited.
are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm excited about sitting down chatting with you. And I was just thinking, I was like, you know what? I've been so busy interviewing everybody else that this is the first time I've been on the other side of the the
Okay.
table, the chair, in a long time. And so I'm excited to be here tonight, and let's just do it.
Do it.
Thank you
Okay.
for having me.
Okay, of course. Welcome you. Welcome you. So, everyone, again, welcome to Conversation is Art. Make sure you like, share our page, and please share this, you all. Share this with everyone because it's a necessary topic. You know, we shy away from mental health, or especially in our Black culture. We're taught, what happens at home stays at home and all that stuff. And y'all, it's some of the stuff we need to talk about to just be free to live our best life. And you can be functioning in pure dysfunction and appear okay. You know, your degreed up self, your business running self, you're on your way to being multi-millionaire
Hmm.
self, and just as torn up and broken inside. So remember that. Just because you're around here smiling faces, they're one of my favorite songs. They lie. I ain't gonna even say sometimes, a lot of times. A lot of times, especially here in America, we're conditioned with this fake it till you make it.
Oh, that part.
And that is definitely not a good thing to live by. So, Dorcas, what I want you to do in your own way, just tell the people a little background, tell them where you come from, and then bring them on up to the present.
Um, where do I start? Well, I am, of course, you said I'm Dorcas Pittman. I am from, I say, the country of the country of the country is part of Alabama. Oftentimes, we don't even say the city, town, we say the county, Wilcox County, Catherine, Alabama. It is one of the poorest counties actually in the United States.
Wow.
My house, the road that I grew up on, it is still a dirt road here in 2023. And so I know, growing up, you don't know you in live in poverty, um, because I didn't feel like I lived in poverty. But by definition and all those things, we lived in a poverty stricken area. Everybody in the same county, every black person in the same county went to the same high school. I'm gonna let that
Gotcha.
sit. I'm gonna let that soak in. Every black person, black kid in the county went to the same high school.
Wow.
And so, yeah, went graduated from high school, went to the University of Montevallo, in Montevallo, Alabama, obtained my bachelor's degree in biology. That's where I joined and became a member of the most amazing sorority, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. Graduated, went on to get my master's in health administration. Got married. My husband and I have been married for almost 13 years. I have a 8-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son. And I did many years in corporate America, and then God decided that He had other plans for me. And so, God plucked me out of a job that I said that people would have to roll me out of because I was comfortable and content. But prior to God doing that, um, life life started lifing, and I went through a very dark season in my life, and we'll get into that conversation when we start talking about the book. But now I am a certified trauma transformation coach, and as a coach, I help women of color. I help Black women who have specifically been affected by childhood abandonment trauma. And most people think that abandonment trauma is the absence of a parent or parental figure physically, but so many people live in a household where they're the parent with their parents and they're still abandoned emotionally. Because if we want to be real, if you grew up in any in the black community, we didn't talk about things. And so you had a
True.
lot of parents who lived with two parent households, one parent household. They were still a lot of children grew up feeling abandoned because because of the emotional abandonment. And so I basically work with women who have suffered from childhood abandonment trauma. And as their coach, my job, my purpose is to um, empower them and help them to speak their truth. In speaking your truth, you're able to remove the shame of your trauma, because as long as there's shame attached to your trauma, there's no growth.
True.
You can't fully operate in the space that God created you or put you on this earth to operating in. And in removing that shame, you're able to really understand your and reclaim your identity, not who you are on this earth, but who God says you are. Because at the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters. Um, and God wants us to show up authentically in our God given purpose. And you can't do that when you are bound by the shame of trauma, when you're afraid to speak your truth, when you're depressed and all of those things as it relates to your trauma. But other than being a trauma transformation coach, I am the founder of Hope in Her Coaching, the Hope in Her community. Hope stands for healing opportunities presented every day. Because every day God gives us breath as an opportunity to heal. We have to choose, keyword choose, to heal. Recently, last year, I launched and became the editor in chief of Women of Hope magazine. That is my pride and joy right now. God blessed me with the opportunity to create and found this magazine. It's all things Women of Hope. We're going into our third issue right now, and it is an empowerment magazine for Black women. Because now more than ever, we need to know that there are other women who have done it. From CEOs to women who've overcome cancer to women who have survived
Yeah.
domestic violence. Every business that you will see in that magazine, it is owned by a Black, and I quote, a Black woman. And I'm unapologetic about it because I am Black. And when you think about it, and if you want to be serious, the Black woman has been at the bottom of the totem pole for centuries.
Even though we
And
become the most educated, we're still
and
at the
even though
bottom.
we've become the most educated, and this is the season that we as Black women take our space, the space that God created for us in this world. We were meant to take up space and not to sit in the back row and not to shrink and hide. We were meant to stand out. That is why so many other cultures work so hard to look like us and be like us and just exude the same energy that we have, but you can't imitate it because it comes naturally. So my job as the editor in chief of Hope, Women of Hope magazine, is to shed a light, is to highlight all of these women and let other women know if we can all do it, you can do it too, because we are here because iron sharpens iron. And Jeremiah 29:11 said God comes to bring us hope in the future, and we are the hope that God speak of. We are the hope, because without hope there is no future. And so as women, as Black women, as individuals, as daughters of Christ who've overcome so many things, if you're living today, you've overcome something. You've had a trial, you've had a challenge, you've had
Yeah.
a valley season, you've overcome something. So we have a responsibility to the body of Christ to let our voice be heard, because they overcame the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and the words of their testimony. And so it is our
Amen.
voices. It is our voices that are needed. It is our voices that are so powerful. It is our experiences that this earth needs. And so we have to take up the space that God created us to take up. So
And unapologetic and bold at that.
unapologetic about it.
And
No
bold.
one
You know what,
apologizes
girl?
for love.
Listen, you got some. Look, you got people raising their hands, praising the Lord, and someone said we are born queens. And for
Yes,
those of you that are listening, if you ain't figured it out by now, she's saved, sanctified, Holy Ghost filled, fire baptized, and is believe in the Lord Jesus. With that being said, if you're
Jesus
not,
grouping. You said
hey,
it, Jesus
listen,
grouping.
Jesus group. Look, hey, if that ain't in your genre, she may not be the trauma coach for you, but may be the trauma coach you need to,
Exactly. And that's the
to,
thing,
to break that cycle.
with my coaching is very faith based. And so I apply biblical and practical principles, because we live, we have to be practical. We live in it, we are in, we're not of this earth, but we are here to take up space in this earth. So we have to be practical, but at the same time, everything about our existence has to be based on the word, because the word cannot return void. And so every aspect of my coaching is faith based. And my clients will tell you, when I pray before each session, I say, I increase so that you may decrease. Speak through me. Even though they hear my voice, they will hear your voice, because this is not about me. You know what your daughter needs. I don't.
True. That's it. That's it. And that's great. And sometimes in the world, like even in praying, they're like, well, you can't pray in Jesus' name. Well, don't ask me to pray, because that's what I pray in. I'm not gonna change me to accommodate you. If
No.
you know who I am and you invited me, well, this is what you get. Well, look, let's talk about this, because I know you said that down. You said you grew up in one of the poorest. Did you say poorest countries in the United States?
40 poorest counties. It's in
Poorest county.
The Black Belt region of Alabama. Of course, if you know
Yeah,
any history about, it was originally for the soil, because the soil was so rich, and it's called the Black Belt. But now, oftentimes, the Black Belt is associated with poverty,
it
because
sure
it's
is.
such underserved population in Alabama, in the nation. And so, oftentimes they say, what good could come out of Wilcox County? There's so much good that has come out of Wilcox County. Um, and it's just when you're given the opportunity, and when you step outside of the norm, when you really step into the space that God created you to step into, and
Yeah,
not get so not get stuck, I'm gonna say, stuck in tradition and stuck in the traditional things. And you have to want to do, and do more, and step outside of it. And our parents, they raised us to, basically, they want us to be better than they are. And
true.
so when um I left.
So tell me this. Tell me about, you said, you were like, I never leave my job. So when it came about and it was like, girl, you gotta let this job go. What kind of
Well,
process was that for you?
um
Or
you
did
know
it
it
kick you out?
Well, actually, it was September 3rd. Well, they informed me September 29th, 2020, that they were restructuring the department, and they were phasing out my position. I had been there, and the thing about it is, my 10-year anniversary would have been October 25th of 2020.
Mm,
And so, because I used to say, I was comfortable and content. You
yeah,
got income, you got a retirement, why, comfortable and content. Though that's right. Those two words right there, comfortable and content, that's like a new spin around your neck, because God did not create us to be comfortable and content. But he knew
true.
he had greater plans for me. But he he plucked me out in the middle of a pandemic. It was a blessing, because my daughter, she was in school at that time, and so going back to school, she was doing virtual learning. My husband worked full time at the
Hmm.
dealership, and so I had to be there at the house, and so that was that. But prior to, a year before I God plucked me out from my job, um that was when life got real dark.
Dark,
It's
real
Yeah,
dark. So
that was about a year and a half before I released from corporate. I say released from corporate America, but God will take us out of a place when He know we're not gonna do it ourselves.
oh, he would definitely do that, and he doesn't do it on your time schedule, or he doesn't like
In the
tap you on
middle
the
of a
shoulder and
pandemic.
say, girl or man, is this cool with you right now for me to snatch this rug from up under you? And a lot of times we would attribute things to Satan.
Mm.
But even I tell people this, even if Satan brings it, it has to bypass God, because
And
God he is the
He has
most
to
high
give him
ruler.
He has to give him permission to touch us, and that's one thing we have to
Yeah,
realize. You think about Job. He has to give Satan permission to touch us. Now we can, um, he comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And when we're not rooted in Christ, and when our flesh is weak, the enemy can, he has to have a host. So he will
Yeah.
come in and he will use us and he will manipulate us. And his job is to get us to a point where we destroy our future, kill our joy, kill our hope,
Yeah. Take our
and
peace.
take our peace. And so we just it was you have to be in a place where God said what the enemy meant for your bad, I would turn it around and use it for your good. And always God has to get the glory in all ways.
Every
So
time.
every time he has to get the glory. So staying rooted and grounded and knowing that no matter what happens, God can use that situation and turn it around for your good. Reading it, reading my book, that's a prime example of what the enemy meant for your bad. God would turn around and use it for your good and for his glory and for the advancement of his kingdom. We just have to choose to accept the assignment.
Simon, true. Because my dad was a minister. He used to always say, he said, y'all around here rebuking devils. You need to take a look in the mirror and and figure out what you doing that you always having to rebuke the devil. Because he said some of it ain't that you following Christ. He says some of it is that you should be following Christ and you are
mm,
fighting him with all the
mm,
things he's drawing you to him. And going back to this, I tell people this: whether you believe in the Lord Jesus Christ or not, you were created to worship him. Now,
yep.
what we do is we worship a whole lot of other stuff, and some of us never get to worship him. I thank God for deliverance of being able to worship the Most High God, whatever state I'm in. So you said, you went to college, girl, and I read in the book, honey, you came with a 4.0 and you had a scholarship
uh,
and all of that stuff is in this book, y'all. And if y'all look right here, it's called Breaking the Silence. And I love that picture. I mean, I love that picture. All of us, whether we grabbed our head like that, we felt that in our
you
inner
know
selves.
I'm gonna tell you about that photo.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Preston Suggs and I knew him from back home, and his photography business is top two, not two. But anyways, we were trying to get the perfect shot, and I knew what I wanted, but it didn't feel right, and I
Gotcha.
was doing it, and I got so frustrated that I just did that. In my
Wow.
frustration, I was so frustrated that I couldn't get it right. It seemed so forced. And in my frustration, this is the shot that he got. And literally when I saw it, it still brings chills because like you said, when you're the brain is the central processing unit of the body. Without the brain, the body is dead. And so when you're brain dead, you're dead. Your mind, the enemy, he idle mind is the devil's playground. And so when you're dealing with mental illness and you're navigating the word of Christianity and you're navigating on what you've been taught, growing up in a Southern Baptist church, what you've been taught about Christianity, it's like you have this battle in your head, and it's like you're so frustrated that you're fighting this battle between you dealing with mental illness and dealing with and being a Christian at the same time. And so that's what the book really digging into is you can be a Christian and still have deal with mental illness.
I'm going to start with the book. I like in your dedication, the first dedication, which you rarely see, you gave it to yourself. You said, to my former self, you did the best you could with what you were given. And that to me was so powerful because that was part of you taking back and taking away the shame, the
Mhm.
unforgiveness for yourself. And so often we don't think about that we that's all we had growing up. Whatever our parents did, that's all they had, or that's all they knew. That was the way the world was. Now thankfully we know about generational stuff that we can deal with it. Someone just said they tried to purchase on ebook
Yeah.
and it's not available.
The ebook will be available at the beginning of April.
Okay, so
Yes.
it'll be available in April.
Hmm.
But I'm gonna tell y'all this. I know folks fan of ebooks, but let me tell you, this about me. This book right here, I promise you, get the
And
ebook, but you wanna, as you can see,
it has
I
journal pages in it.
yeah,
The book is there are several
can't
reflective
see it, but
questions.
it has journal pages for
It
you
has
to.
several reflective questions in it, and that was one thing. I'm tell you, God gave me the title. God gave me this assignment to write this book when I was in the mental ward, y'all.
Okay.
When I was do you want to just dive into that part?
Yeah, yeah. Look, yeah,
Okay.
we'll dive, but I want to read something else first that you said. I like that. In the introduction, you said, as I travel along this journey of healing, I have come to realize that suffering in silence is not just a me problem, but a we problem. Because this is the deal with mental illness. We talk about you, they need help, but we never take a retrospective. Me, myself, I had to do my own personal journey of going back to do some healing from childhood trauma. And it wasn't so much that I had a bad childhood or anything, but you learned there were things that
Mhm.
no, that it wasn't so
Mhm.
much that it was like bad, or you being physically abused, but you realize some things that you were exposed to. Now there are some folk, because I grew up in a small town too, South Alabama, Atmore, Freemanville community. Uh, and me and one of the people from there were just talking the other day how that was blatant stuff that was just wrong, but people were going on with life
Mhm.
just like it was okay.
And that's
So
the thing. I tell
yeah,
my clients, don't disregard the small things. Because if you think about a paper cut, if you
yes,
put some hand sanitizer on that paper cut, you don't know it's there until you put that hand sanitizer on it and it burns like crap.
yes,
Oftentimes the smallest thing could have the most traumatizing impact on your life and you don't even realize it. And so no, it's not all obvious, but like you said, when you really sit back and you reflect and you think about things, there are things that happen along our journey that really impacted our lives that we don't in a negative way that we don't realize.
yeah, and
And
we
so
we
that's the
and
part.
and of course that don't say anything. We learn to suppress stuff, and people don't realize. I know for
What goes on
me,
in this house stays in this house.
true, and you believe it or not, you all, your brain over time will literally put things so far deep that you forget about them until something happens and boom, there it is. You find yourself in a ball of tears, shaking and trembling and whatever. And then you got to explore what led to that. Now the part about that, and you know this, Dorcas, is that most of us, when those things start coming up, we don't want to deal with them, so
We don't want to deal
we
with
push
it.
them back down. So
Yeah,
for you, when okay, you got to school, you had you had a full ride, right?
I didn't have a full ride. Of course, we had the Pell Grant. I had some other
Yeah.
scholarships, and so I didn't have well, combined. I didn't have to pay all my scholarships and everything. My grants combined, I didn't have to pay anything. But prior, my childhood and just I was my mom left when I was 2. Um, like I said, I'm from one of the poorest counties in the nation, and there's nothing there. There is absolutely nothing there. And she moved to Michigan. I had family on both my grandmother and my granddad's side in Michigan, some in Flint, some in Detroit. And I was left with my grandmother and my mom. Now here I am, a 37-year-old woman, a 37-year-old healed and whole woman. I understand. She was 20. No, she was 22. And so um, I lived with my grandparents and, I had family in the house as well. But, being molested as a child, and the thing about it is, I'm gonna say this. I never gave the name of my molestors.
Mm-hmm.
Never gave the name because it's not about them.
Okay.
And people often ask me, why didn't I do that? Because when I told my story, if I'd given the names of those people, then it wouldn't have been about the healing. It would have been about them.
Gotcha.
So I have forgiven them and I've had conversations, but I will never, ever give up a name because that's not what God told me to do. So I just wanted to clarify that because I've had that question asked in the past, why didn't you say a name? It's not about them. This is about God and Him getting His glory. And this is about me telling my story. And my story, even though they played a part in it, it's not about them.
I got you. I
And
understand.
so,
I understand that, and people have to realize God give different people different ways to handle things and to address things, and that's what we have to be mindful. When we're led and guided by the Holy Spirit, God may tell me to go down this road and turn left. He may tell you to stand still, or He may tell somebody else to go in a whole different way, and we have to
direction.
respect that. I know for me, one of my things, and because I finally just, we always talk about emotional eating. But generally speaking, for the most part, if we go back and dig down to where the emotion came from, the majority of us have eating disorders that are usually tied to some type of trauma. And I
Hmm.
know for me, even in battling weight, working out and exercising, I always, this is my inside joke. I say, thank God if I like exercising, I would have probably gotten up to 400 pounds. Well, for me, it was kind of like I got to a point, I was like, Lord, what is it that I'm missing with this? M- Not being a certain size, but reaching a healthy weight for me. And that's
Hmm.
how I approach my health journey. And the Lord just simply revealed to me, I was not molested, but improper touching by adult men. Thankfully for me, none of them were in my family. You know what I'm saying? But still, they were still in the community and people we went to church with and stuff like that. But I know some folks in our community that were sexually assaulted by well-known people, and nothing was done, and it was known. It was
Hmm.
like, be quiet. So generally speaking, the woman in most cases in sexual assault is made to where the whole shame and the burden and not even being able to tell somebody, well, even when you told them, it was like, be quiet.
And yeah, and that's the thing. But that is why me telling my story was so important. Um, but just to get back on track, was molested as a child. In Black families, we don't talk about stuff,
Mm-mm.
and it's learned behavior. It's generational.
Yes.
If you we really do the research, it dates all the way back to slavery because you didn't say anything. The slaves didn't say anything because they didn't want master to know. So whatever goes on, it stays here. And so when you
Mm-hmm.
think about that, that's generational behavior and generational mindset. That mindset that was passed from generation to generation, and it went from the slaves protecting themselves to really turn into something that really put us in bondage and caused a lot of trauma and a lot of people generations bleeding on the next generation. And so growing up, I didn't have my mom there in the house with me. My dad and my dad's side of the family live about 20 minutes away. But I didn't know how to navigate those emotions. I didn't know how to navigate those feelings of abandonment. Not having my mom there, being teased. That's why your mom doesn't want you. Your mom, everyone has their mom around, but you. Seeing my
Mm-hmm.
classmates having their moms and wishing I would do all those things. And so I didn't know how to navigate those emotions. I remember being in my closet at times, beating myself with a hammer because I needed a physical pain to match the emotional pain.
Mm.
And there was a lot of that. But because I was exposed to sexual behavior at an early age, that was something that, the body is the body. And no matter what happens, your body will react in ways that you don't even want it to react.
Mm-hmm.
And so, even though it was a wrong behavior, and that's one thing that I battled with for a long time of blaming myself, even though it was an inappropriate thing that happened to me, my body began to respond to certain things, and so I didn't know about sex. Only way I knew about it was TV, and so I became addicted to pornography. Like other people say that they have cocaine, they have their drugs, they have
Mm-hmm.
food. Addiction is addiction. And I was ashamed of that. I hid that for so long, but that was my coping. That was my way of coping because it gave me a high. I could feel good for whatever many seconds or whatever it was. Not even being promiscuous, it was just that. And going through high school, dealing with all of this. navigating teenage years, and I was like, when I go to college, I can reinvent myself. I went to a school, no one knew me. None of my classmates went there. It was a small town, University of Montevallo, and I was like, I can go and be whoever I wanted to be. Um, and the thing about it is, growing up, and I'm more comfortable saying this now. My nickname was Coochie. Yes, that's another story. It was Coochie, and so you had people, even grown men, calling me the slang of a female body part.
Yeah.
And when I got in high school, the guys, the boys, they're teenage boys. They went to the P word, and so here you are, your entire youth, you're being called a female, the slang of a female body part. My mom never called me that. So when I went to college, I left that name there, and everyone started calling me K, which is short for Lil K. And I said I can be whoever everyone needs me to be, because I didn't know who I was. I didn't have anyone to shape and mold me and tell me shape my identity, because as parents, and me being a parent, we have a responsibility to shape and train up our children and mold them, and instill in them who they are, not as on this earth, but as who they are in Christ. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are smart. You are beautiful. You
Yeah.
belong. You are worthy. The only person that can validate you is God. And I tell my children that, like, God validated you when you were born. And I didn't have that. And so going off to college, I graduated high school, 4 point plus GPA, all these things. I think I was number 5 in my class of I don't know how many. Here we are riding high. I'm going to school to be, major in biology. And as I was navigating through college, realizing that the trauma was still there.
Yeah. It
And
might have been
so
sleeping a little bit, but it
it
was.
was it was I was suppressing it because I wanted to be I was searching for who I was. And I could be whoever I thought I needed to be, to for people to feel that I was worthy enough to have me in their lives. And that was the thing, because I didn't know my worth. My worth, and it was diminished because here I am, I'm growing up. I don't have my mom with me. My mom has now gotten married, and I have my siblings, but no one ever came back and got me.
Let me ask you this, Dorcas. So, with your mom, because I know you think you said in the book she's supposed to been coming back to get you, but that never happened.
And the thing was, from my recollection, grandma and granddaddy had got attached to me. So like, oh, you're not taking her anywhere. And I felt as if you never fought for me.
I got you. Yeah,
And
that
that was
is
the thing.
something.
You never fought for me, because they never had legal custody of me. And that's the
Yeah.
thing about it. Growing up in the country, it was just like my grandma did everything. Papers were never signed. So throughout majority of my childhood, like, you could have came and got me, but not knowing, like, that's hindsight is 2020. It wasn't meant for me to be with her.
Yeah. And
It
and as
wasn't.
and as bad as what you share in the book, you know, it still goes through. God still working it for your good.
Mhm.
And I think people, we talk about things. Every triumphant person that's in the Bible, they went through some stuff. You know, we think about Joseph in the pit. That was
Mhm.
bad, but it was necessary because what the brothers didn't know, oh, I'm gonna be feeding y'all on
And
down the
that's and,
road.
and and that's the thing about it is, we don't know that when we're going through.
Yeah.
And and that's why I understand now why we have to stay grounded. And I call myself a Jesus groupie, because we have to stay grounded and understand that what the enemy meant for our bad, God is going to turn around it for our good, because in always he gets the glory. We don't see it in the moment. We don't see it in the moment, but we have to trust him in those moments, in those pits, in those valleys, because he is that light. His word is his word is the light. His word is what's gonna guide us out of that pit and out of that darkness. Um, and so I didn't see myself as worthy enough as I was. to
Mm,
be in somebody's life.
got
I felt as if I had to kind of figure out what I needed to be or who I needed to be to show them that I was worthy enough to have me in their lives.
seeking that validation. Because one of the things you
Seeking,
brought out in the book was about your mom. Now, mom is in Michigan, but
yeah,
dad is real close.
dad
And
is
you
real
were
close.
like, you were involved with his family. He was very
Mhm,
present. He was at all your recitals. But it
mhm.
went till later on you realized, yeah, he was there, but he was still absent too,
And that was the thing. I
many
was
ways.
so my and God revealed that to me in the writing. The trauma caused by my mom was so in my face that what my daddy was doing, it didn't matter. At least he was there.
Yeah.
At least he was there. At least he was able to walk me half a 50-yard line when I was Miss Football in middle school, when I had my tap dance recital in 7th grade. All of those things, but he was there. But when you're reading the book, you understand that there was trauma caused there because he never taught me how a man should treat me.
True.
He
And
never
sad to
taught me.
say, many of the dads, they didn't have a clue.
They didn't have a clue. Papa was look. I love I look just like my daddy. That is my homie. Like people, when we get together, it's always a good time. But Papa was a Rolling Stone. And one thing I love about my dad, he doesn't apologize for anything. He knows, he was a Rolling Stone. But he, even with him reading the book, he said, "Baby girl, that's your truth, and I know what I did and what I didn't do. I know what I was and what I wasn't, and I'm okay with that." And even with writing a book, my mom navigated this entire journey with me because a lot of my trauma was deep rooted in that abandonment. And
Gotcha.
she read the book before it was even released.
So how did
She
she
read every
react to
chapter.
it?
It was my story. It was out of respect for her because
Okay.
God was still God. This played a huge role in our relationship being healed.
Okay.
I mean, now, like the relationship that I have with my mom now, it's night and day. Because at one point I resented her because I felt as if you had have been there, I wouldn't have been hurt. I wouldn't have been dropped. I wouldn't have been abused. I wouldn't have been misused. I would have I would have been secure in my identity. I wouldn't have looked to other people for validation. And the
Yeah.
sad reality is there are so many of us who are still seeking validation. That I think that was one of the final lessons that God taught me. And that was the thing that really shifted our relationship because um I can't it was like 2019. I don't know. I think it was like in the 2000 sometime in 2019 and I was still angry at my mom. And I was like, "God, why?" He said, "Because you're looking for her. You're still looking for her to validate you. And I
Mm.
validated you when I spoke you into existence." When you think about it, the only person that has the authority to validate you is the person who created you. The person, the being who knows every hair on your head, knows the day you were going to be born, the day you're going to die, that
Yeah.
um, knows your entire story. I knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb. And because he allowed us to be here, he validated us. We were validated when he sent, I say, our big brother to the cross to die for us. And so it was kind of like one of those aha moments. And I sent my mom a message and I said, I realized that what I need from you, you don't have the capacity to give me. The only person who can validate me is God. And he has already
Amen.
stamped me with his approval. And there's nothing I can do to make him love me any less.
And I
And
think
that
that's the
was
biggest lesson for us.
mhm.
We only control us. It doesn't matter
Mm,
how bad you want somebody to change. It doesn't matter if you know they're going down a bad road. There is nothing you can do to change that. But release that to God. I know for me, and even I had some hard conversations with my parents about some things. Like I said, my parents, we had a fun life and everything, but I was like, Mom and Dad, this was really messed up right here. And I remember us praying together because my dad has outside children during the marriage. And I looked at them. I said, you know what? Y'all still living. Y'all need to pray to break this. And it's not just it started with you all, of course, generationally. But
Mm-hmm.
we were there in the home and we prayed, and my dad prayed, and my mom prayed. I think all of us did an individual prayer. And it led to me praying, okay, Lord, I don't want this passed down to my children. And I said, to every generation that shows up behind me. I didn't put like people say down to the third and fourth, fifth generation. I was like to the generations to infinity until you come back to get us. But at the same time, going back to what you said, there has to be an open communication, which I'm thankful that I grew up in, even though my parents were the old, what they call the older generation. They were always very as me and my daughter I would say, really out of their generation. They were very multi-generational in that in our family we could talk about hard stuff. I mean, come to find out, growing up, I kind of thought like, God, my dad is the only man out here in these streets and he had these babies, right? Well,
Mhm.
it was a whole bunch of other folks.
Oh,
And fortunately for us, we thank God we know who our siblings are, because there are many folks in our hometown, they
they
don't
don't.
have a clue. I mean, you kind of know they look like them folks, but it ain't been validated. Ain't nobody said it out
No
their
one,
mouth.
no one validated, but no one. It's like it hasn't been denied and it hasn't been proven.
Proven, yeah. So it's kind of like
Just
like
be quiet.
we thank God. We know our siblings and very close to them, because even through that, my mom was kids ain't got nothing to do with. They're innocent, and they love
They're
they love
innocent.
they love my mom. So that's something we have to get away from, is hiding stuff. And it's not the shaming about it or missing about it, but we got to have conversations about these wounding things that we keep doing. And then you keep wondering why it keeps
It's a
showing up,
cycle. It's a cycle.
because nobody is interrupting the cycle and nobody is willing to say this came from here. And this stuff, y'all, you got to put some fasting and praying on it. You can't
And
ice slick it.
yeah, and the thing about it is that, okay, you sweep this under the rug, sweep this under the rug. And I said one day when you keep sweeping stuff under the rug, somebody's gonna trip over it. And the person who trips over it, if you've been walking and you trip over
Yeah.
something, what you do, you look back to see what it was that you
Uh-huh.
tripped over, and if you can, you're gonna move it out the way so nobody else will trip and fall. Whoever trips over all that stuff that you swept on the rug, they're gonna have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And I had to deal with it. I had to deal with I was the chosen one. And I always wondered why I always felt like I didn't fit in. Like I just went to the beat of my own drum. But I was never I didn't fit in because I am the chosen one. I'm the one that God chose to go through all of the things, the generational things that
Mm-hmm.
have been that has had my family, my bloodline, my lineage in bondage. And I had to go through it because I'm the one that he chose to break it. Because I said, I have a daughter, I have a son.
Yes.
They won't, they will not go through what I went through. Now I can't shield them because life is life. They're gonna suffer, they're gonna go through challenges,
Everything
they're
is
gonna be
true.
hurt. But my daughter and my son at 5 and 8, when we talk about things, we talk about feelings. If they get in trouble, why? It's validate, understanding who validates them, understanding that they are valuable, that they are important, that they are worthy, and not letting them know that it is okay to talk about things. It's okay to talk about your emotions. It is okay for
Yeah.
you to ask questions. My son said, "Why can't I do this?" And you explain it to them because it can't continue to go on. We have generations prior to us have there's been so much bloodshed that we've just been bleeding. My My mom bled on me, my grandmother bled on her, my great
Yeah,
grandmother bled on my grandmother, my great grandma bled. But it goes back that it was just generations after generations of bloodshed, and everyone was just patching it up, sweeping it on the rug. Don't address it. What goes on in this house stays in this house.
true.
But where does it lead us? I can tell you where. It leads you to a young lady who, after her second child, started develop severe anxiety, end up with postpartum, undiagnosed postpartum depression, and in March of 2019, sat in her car with her kids playing in the yard with a loaded 9mm in her hand because she didn't feel worthy enough, that she suffered in silence because she wasn't nurtured, or she wasn't told that she was worthy and that her voice was valid and that she could talk about things.
That's
It's
that
it's
that was
it's
that was heavy. That's when I had to when I got to that portion. When you say you was taking your daughter to a play date and you decided, you told somebody to meet you at the car and take them in, and you decided that that day you were gonna end your life. But thank God for grace.
and
That
I literally saw the enemy pleading for my life. And it was so much shame attached to it because this is 2019. The end of 2016, I went through this. I was part of this small group in my church called Life, living in freedom every day. And that was the first time that I actually told someone I had been molested. And then come fast forward spring 2017, I was a co-leader in that same small group, helping lead other women to freedom. So that's 2017. Fast forward 2 more years, and I'm suicidal. I'm literally on the brink of cursing God because I had accepted the fact that I accepted the lie that I was born to be in pain.
and I like this what you said, and this is so true in Christendom. I felt this way I was failing as a Christian because this did not align with what I was taught in the church. Because pretty much now church is getting better with addressing
Oh
mental
yeah,
illness and struggle. It was like you just need to pray hard. And
you
I
just
tell
need to pray
people,
about it.
about time somebody is crashing and burning or pleading for help. They have outlined every power scripture. They have prayed every prayer. They have exhausted everything they know for as biblically or in Christian world that they can. However,
Mhm.
I would never forget this many years ago. And I'm talking about many years ago, for he was really even popular as he was. He was on TV. TD Jake said this. He said, what we fail to realize is that when someone give their life to Christ,
Hmm.
he said, they just acknowledge that they have accepted the fact that Jesus died for their sins. He's rose again. And he's coming back to get them. He said, however, ain't nothing changed but that they got salvation seal. Whatever is eating them will continue to eat them until we help them work through it. So often, there's really not it's better now a process when people do become believers to help them walk through life. Also, to give them a safe space to share things without being publicly shamed or end up as what we call church hurt. I mean, you got church hurt, work hurt,
And
but
that's yeah.
at the
That
church is
scripture.
even more devastating because people have a misguided understanding that the collective church, and when I say the building, is what people go into, that everybody is doing what is right, and they're not. Some people just come to church out of habit. Some people come to church out of bargain with God. I'm gonna go to church every Sunday, even though I'm gonna live in an old man's life to whom I was like, I was a chief sinner with that, living in sin, but still going to church because church was habit. Thank God, man. This is what my dad always
Church
said.
was
Long as you
religion.
was keeping going, yeah, long as you were keeping going, you were hearing the word, and hopefully you'll be drawn. But at one point, it got to the point was like, this ain't working for me. And then you start seeking a deeper thing with God, like with you. You had this really a breakdown. It was literally the tipping
Oh yeah.
point became, this is it.
That was the thing, that happened in March, and like I said, I was like, I said, God, and my friend that I text, I've seen things. If who's that one person that you could text that
Mm-hmm.
if they ain't gonna text back and you win $1 million, like that's like that's who I text. Like, okay, she may text you back, but she may text you back a month later. So,
Yeah.
and I was like, God, if it's meant for me to be here, she gonna respond. She gonna see this. And I tell people it felt like it was a millisecond. And all I could say was take it from me because I know how to handle a gun because my husband and I would go to the gun range and we would just have fun. We go to the gun range on Sunday for a date. I can handle an AR. I have 2 9s. I want my my 20 gauge shotgun right now because it's a sport. But that day I saw it in a different light. But that was in March of 2019. I didn't check myself into the hospital until the end of May, the very
With
last
the
week of May.
Well, look, I gotta read this portion, y'all, because this is what had me. I mean, I said, "Whoa!" I text her. I said, "Oh, this is heavy." You said, "I looked down and saw my 9 millimeter sitting beside me. That day, I saw my gun in a different light. I no longer viewed it as a hobby or a means of protection. I saw it as a way out because you thought no one cared." Then you said, "As I sat there with my loaded gun, I closed my eyes and imagined pulling the trigger. I saw myself lying lifeless in the driver's seat. I saw the pain and terror on everyone's face as they ran to the car, and terrifyingly saw my children crying for their mother. Then I opened my eyes, picked up the gun, and just wept. For a split second, I looked in the mirror and saw my children playing. That glimmer of hope that God said, wait a minute, I got to bring my girl back from this. Through the tears, I saw a glimmer of hope, picked my phone up and text, help me, to another friend. And you said, thankfully, God set it up for her to see my text in time. He saved me. Oh, and when I read, I was an ER nurse. I worked at ER for 14 years. I took care of folks that uh attempted death by suicide, and some survived and some of them did not. And I always tell people always say, well, if you're gonna kill yourself, it's gotta be you're a coward. I say, y'all, do you know how deep and low you gotta be it to take a gun and take your own life, y'all? That ain't no weak person. That is just a person that's at their wits end. They don't see any way out.
See any hope, and that's the thing.
Desperate.
That's the thing. You know, now my business is Dorcas Pittman International. But my first business, and it's gonna eventually turn into a nonprofit. It's called Darkness to Hope. And people say, "Well, how you have kids? How could they take their own life?" When I tell you, when you are in the abyss of that darkness, when you don't see any light, when all you see is black. He said, I come to give you hope in the future. That light represents hope. When you don't have hope, when you don't see a way out, when you don't see light, you get to that point, it's like, why am I here? You feel
Yeah.
like you are wasting space. You feel as if that everyone would be better off without you because in a sense, you are just a hindrance. Because
And that's something.
you don't see yourself as a purpose. You don't that you have a purpose. You don't see yourself as worthy. And the thing about it is, my husband and I did fertility with my daughter. I suffer from severe endometriosis and uterine fibroids. So for me to be in a place to take my own life, every aspect of my being is hope now because I understand that I know what it feels like to be in that space where you don't have hope. Without
Yeah.
hope, there is no future. And so when people say, oh, like you said, they're cowards, they're just selfish for taking their own life. What about this? What about that? When you are in that space, you don't see anything else. You don't see the future of your children. You don't see the future of your marriage. You don't see the future of your career. You don't see the future of anything. So if you don't see a future, Why are you here? Why you feel as if why am I even existing?
And
Why am I even
it's
existing?
something. I know for
It's
me, I never been in that the lowest place is yours, but I know I've had bouts of depression, and I recognize, and I think for me, just being a ER nurse helped me to realize, girl, you better go talk to somebody because it creeps up on you so suddenly because you're saying like, well, shake it off, keep pushing, but your gut is telling you something's off here. You need, something's off. But if you start talking to people, then here they come saying, oh, just get over that. Just get over that. What people don't fail to realize, this could be just a tipping point. You've shouldered, you suppressed. And that's why people say, oh, that little one thing flip you out. Well, you don't know the other things.
you don't
This
know.
this
You don't
avalanche
know.
has been this snowball been rolling down this mountain now for a
It
while.
was
So
like, yeah,
now, yeah,
it
so
said
it's kind of like now you say hi and people will break out and start crying. It's almost like boom, that faucet. I mean, it's like a pop-off valve for me.
and that's the thing about it, um, you don't realize, and that's because suffering in silence. People don't realize the weight that you're carrying. And that's one of the exercises I do with my clients in one of my coaching programs. It's an exercise called the weight of it all, and it's basically bringing the emotional, the mental, the all of the weight that you've been carrying because of trauma, and allowing you to experience it in the physical, and so that you understand exactly how it feels in the physical to carry that weight, so that when you begin to start carrying stuff, other things, life is going to continue to happen, but you're able to recognize when you're carrying weight that you're not supposed to carry. And we
You
wonder
become more
why.
self-aware is what you're
You
doing. You're
become more
recognizing
self-aware, and
your
you wonder
triggers.
why. And you wonder why, Black women, you look at statistics, heart disease. Um,
Yeah.
One of the leading causes of death in Black women is heart disease, is stroke. All of these things is because we've been conditioned to say, okay, I'm strong, just suck it up and carry it. But you don't realize what you're doing. You're carrying weight that you were never meant to carry. Our body, stress manifests itself in a physical form, and we wonder why we have high blood pressure. We wonder why we have all these things, because you're carrying weight that God never told you to carry. He said, cast your cares upon me. But we don't cast our cares upon God, because we don't when you cast your cares upon God, you deal with it, you acknowledge it, you address it, you accept it for what it is, and you release it to him. But we don't we don't do that. We have been conditioned to just say, suck it up and deal with it. God never told us to suck it up and deal with it. He said, cast your cares upon me. I'm strong. God is meant to carry it all. We were never meant to carry the weight of it all. And so, me realizing that, um, May of 2019, the end of May, I remember that week vividly. It was the week of my daughter's pre-K graduation. I remember I had called into work because I just couldn't get out of bed. Um, and I remember one day I was terrified to get out of bed because I was afraid of what may do to myself. I didn't eat, I didn't drink anything, because I didn't want to go to the bathroom. And I timed it. I said, if I get the kids from school at this time, by the time I get them home and fed, they've had a bath, my husband will be home. So with the kids, I'm constantly moving, so I don't have it. That's a distraction. And then my husband will be home, and it worked out. Um, but that Thursday was my daughter's pre-K graduation, and it took everything I had to be happy. This is my
Mm,
firstborn. She's graduating pre-K, kindergarten is next. When I tell you, it took every ounce of my being to put on a smile, to
yeah.
pretend that everything was okay. And that night, and my mom was here, and she had no
Mm,
idea. That night, that evening, I told my husband, I said, something isn't right. Something isn't right, because I'm afraid of me now. I'm afraid of what I may do.
mm,
And for me to have to fight to be happy, On the day my firstborn graduates pre-K, something isn't right. I said, I need to go to the hospital. And so we went over to my in-laws' house, and I told them what was going on. I said, I said, I need your help. Um, to help him with the kids. They lived around the corner. And I told them what was going on and all of those things. And I didn't know what to expect. I just knew in that moment I had to choose to get help, because if I didn't get help, I wouldn't be a mom and a wife. Because at that
Wow.
point, I knew I wasn't going to be here much longer, because I was terrified.
Of
I was
that.
terrified. I was terrified of me, because I was in such a dark and desolate and cold place. And
Wow.
anybody who've experienced that and didn't take their own lives, that would tell you that is a place I don't wish on my worst enemy. Because God is nowhere. God is hope. I
Definitely.
knew
And
that
we
his
know that
hope.
comes from the enemy, although Satan turns it around and makes us be angry at God rather than
Oh, I was
saying
mad.
he's
Oh,
the
I was
one that's here to kill, steal,
and
and
destroyed.
destroy. Because as believers, we have the misguided understanding that you're going to speak to every mountain, it's going to move. You're going to name it and claim it. Whereas we don't read those scriptures in the Bible about man's time on this earth is a little while and it is full of trouble. Literally, because we're temporary in this earth realm. And Lord, it's 8:06, so we got to close out. But look, y'all, she coming back next week because she shared with you the low place and ended up going in to get actually saying, I need help. And then, okay, we ain't gonna end on this note. We're gonna let her come back next week so she can give us a joyful side of how she's turned this. Really, she's turned her trauma into triumph by telling her story to prevent people from waiting as long as she did to even ask for help,
Hmm.
and also to teach them the early signs so you can recognize it early on, because that's the key. We got to recognize these things. And you all, if you're friends with someone, if you're close to someone, you know when they start acting different. You may not can make them doing things, but if you can say, you know what, I noticed such and such, you're giving them some acknowledgement that you recognize something is different.
And
So often we be like, well, it ain't my business. Oh yeah, it's your
it's your
business.
business.
It's your business. It's your business. I had a situation, it wasn't even early, with my daughter. She was going through some, and I said to her dad, I said, something off with her. He was like, what is it? So I was like, I was like, what's going on? She's like, nothing, mommy. I was like, no, this me. What is going on? Of course, it wasn't near the, but left unchecked, it would have walked its way on down
Hmm.
to that path. So you all pay attention to the people that are around you. Girl, look, you have an awesome, powerful message uh here, and
Thank
then you
you,
have,
Eleanor.
look,
Thank you.
this is your Sarah with the crying
Renee.
emoji.
Look,
And y'all, I want to put this back up here. I put it in the messages
yeah.
too. This is a crisis hotline, you all. And trust me, post COVID, depression and
Look,
anxiety
let me
and
tell you
everything is
something.
it's out the real.
God knew I had to start my healing journey before COVID, because COVID would really took me out. Being stuck in the house with two kids, working, doing school and stuff like that. But God is very intentional. Now you said something, pay attention to people. My prayer now, when God drops someone in my spirit, or we say, oh, God, God dropped in my spirit, I don't just text and say, hey, how are you doing?
Call.
I said, God, give me a word for them, because you
Mm,
know what they're going through. You give me a word that speaks specifically to what they're going through, so that they know it's you. Because how you doing? Just praying for you. That is just so generic, and so that's it's just easy for us to say. But when you ask God to give you a specific word for that person, so that they know that you hear them, that they know that you see them, that they know that you haven't forgotten about them, that they know that you are answering their prayers. That makes the difference. And I can't
difference.
tell you every time that God has done that and I've asked God to give me a word for them, they say, I don't know how you knew, but I needed this right here today.
And
They don't
y'all, so
need
that's
just
good.
they don't need just, oh, I'm praying for you, just checking to see how you're doing. Sometimes nowadays people need something specific because life is getting real life and real bad right now.
It sure
But
is. Even though we under the misguided, everything is peachy keen. It's not, you all. People are suffering, are suffering. Well, look, Dorcas, we enjoyed you. We're looking forward to next
I can't
week.
wait till next week so we can get
Yeah.
into the
Listen,
other side
listening
of
audience, you all share this tonight and then let people know she'll be back next week. Valton, we missed you. Looking forward to you coming back because he has a lot going on. Gonna put back up his flyer for his show and gonna add his cash app. You all, we talk about all the time about these kids, so reach out and help. Cash app is $ Valton Johnson. You can give $5, $10, 25 or whatever. Everything will help with him making sure these children know that they are loved and cared about and learning a skill. You all, if you never was in like high school plays or anything like that, or any type of plays, it take a lot of folks to put on a production, even a simple one at a high school. So you can imagine what Hollywood takes for sure. So, Dorcas, I really thank you for coming out, joining me tonight, and looking forward to next week. And y'all, she gave y'all her word. We usually let you close out with some powerful word, but you gave it to him. You said, when somebody gets drops in your spirit, first of all, you pray and ask God to give you a specific word so they know that God led you to them. But I'm gonna add in like my daddy say, now make sure you get a prayer through, okay? And then you get your answer back, okay? Make sure. Make sure, okay?
make, make sure don't
And
bounce
then
off the
you
ceiling.
all, even with that, this is what I do now. When I think about people, I don't text. I call them. I intentionally, because we need to be hearing voices, you all. I go visit people. You need to look at people because we're good at masking up and faking it till we make it and we're down on the inside. Folks tell you, I always tell my friends like this, whatever I'm going through, y'all going through it with me. Y'all going through it with me because I'm gonna call you
Yeah.
up. You ain't gotta tell everybody your business, but there's somebody needs to know the real you that you can be real deal with your saved, sanctified, holy, depressed self.
Oh, I can't wait till next week because that's when that after after I tell people once you get past chapter 3, it's like chapter, like you said, chapter 2 and 3 it's heavy because that's where
Oh
you
yeah, girl. I had
experience.
to pray. I said, Lord, am I gonna be able to sleep? I did. It really. And look, and I got one of my friends, and most people know me. I'm a pretty, as they call a tough cookie, as they say, but I burn my superwoman cape. And I'm gonna say this to y'all: the most healing word that you could ever come up with in your life is no. You cannot be everything to no.
It's because
You don't
listen,
have to do it. And you don't have to explain why you said no.
mm,
It's just no, because people will drain you bare and they won't be able to, they won't pour anything into your
mm.
coffers. So we thank y'all for coming out and looking forward to next week. Y'all